keep your kids occupied on a road trip, especially a long road trip, if you don't want to rely on screens? Well, I have gathered up a lot of things that we use on road trips with our 5 kids to hopefully give you some ideas of what you can do for your upcoming road trip. Hi, I'm Jess from the blog siloandsage.com, and here we talk about all things homeschool, homestead, and handmade. And today we are talking about road trips because we are coming up on a time of year when a lot of people are taking road trips. And if you have kids, you know how it can be to keep kids occupied in the car. And it can be easy to toss a screen at them or throw on a movie if you have a fancy vehicle, which I do not. I have an old vehicle that has no screen built into it, but you probably have one that is nicer and fancier than mine. But it's easy to throw on a movie or give them an iPad or give them some kind of device. And there is nothing wrong with that. But sometimes it's good to have some other options, or you may not want to rely on screens as your only option. What if the iPad dies? What if something happens and your DVD player stops working? Or maybe you just want them to not use a screen for a while and you want them to learn how to entertain themselves. So I'm going to show you a bunch of the things that we use on road trips for our 5 kids that help to keep them entertained, because honestly, we don't use a lot of screens on road trips. My oldest is 15, so when he was young, we didn't have the option of handing him an iPad because we didn't have them in our house at all for our kids to use. So our kids do not have personal devices. You can watch my video about screens if you're interested in knowing more about my philosophy on screens or how we use them in our home and our homeschool. But we don't tend to use them a lot on road trips. We expect our kids to do other things. So I'm just going to show you a wide variety of things. We don't necessarily take all of these things every single time we take a road trip, but we do take many of these things often. Now, we live in Wisconsin, and we have family that lives in Minnesota and family that lives in Michigan, and they're both about 5-ish hours away when you figure in all the stops that you are going to take with your children, because a 4-hour trip, what should be a 4-hour trip, turns into at least 5 hours when you're traveling with children. But we are used to taking road trips with our kids. So we consider that kind of a smallish road trip. For our family, 5 hours or less is small. Now, you might think that is really long because you are not used to taking that long of a road trip with your family, and that's totally fine. But for us, that's what we consider like a small road trip. If we're going on a longer road trip, like for taking a big trip, like a couple years ago, we went to Alabama. A couple of years before that, we went to Florida. Those to us are long road trips. They tend to take 2 days for us, and we pack a lot of things, and we do use a few more screens. But we have found some things that work really great for our kids and are very entertaining without the screen option. The first and maybe the most obvious is books. If you have readers, this is one of the best things that you can do, is you can bring books along for them to read. I just grabbed these off the shelf here. If you do not have readers, still bring books for them. Bring picture books, bring board books that they can flip through because they're entertaining. If they have an older sibling, the older sibling can read them a book or two. You can also play audiobooks. You can play them on your whole car speaker. You can bring a device that you use to plug in a Bluetooth speaker so that like you and your husband in the front seat can listen to something, and then your kids can listen to something else in the back. Drawing is a great car activity. So sketchbooks are really great. Your kids can draw whatever they want. Something like a chalkboard or a dry erase board or a boogie board or a Magnadoodle. These are all really great options for riding in the car. Now, what I love about things like this boogie board, this is a generic one, but it usually comes with a stylus, but of course I could not find it for the video. Who knows where it is in my house? But what happens is you draw on it, and it kind of looks like this, and then you can just press the trash button and it disappears. And ours has this fancy little lock at the bottom so you don't accidentally erase your drawing while you are working on it. These are great. My kids actually call them iPads, which tells you how much my kids use screens. Not very much. So we love to use these on road trips. They are a lot of fun. My kids actually like to draw, and then they pass it to their brother, and their brother draws something and they like to share to make their own, kind of game with it. coloring books, and activity pads. You can find these at the dollar store. Anything that gets my kids focused on some kind of activity in the car is really great. So coloring books and these activity pads are awesome because they kind of give you a direction. So instead of kids just being like, well, I don't know what to draw about, or I don't know what to write about, or, you know, I don't know, I'm just bored, they can have something that kind of shows them what to do. A lot of these will have different activities like, you know, puzzles and crosswords. We do puzzle books like Sudoku puzzles, crossword puzzles. These are awesome for car rides, especially for older kids who might actually want to get their brain thinking while they're sitting in the car for so many hours. You can also get these. We have these are from Highlights, but I'm sure they have lots of different brands. These are like those search and find hidden picture books. These are awesome for pre-readers because they have the pictures along the sides so they know what to look for in the big picture over here. Now, I'll link all these things in the description, but this particular brand I like because if you don't want to reuse them, your kids can actually color the objects that they find. Now, we like to reuse them, so our kids just kind of look at them and they don't like circle it or they don't check it off or anything, so we can use it over and over because once you've used it and then you pass it to a sibling and then you don't use it again until a year or two later, you've forgotten where all the things are. So they're fun to reuse over and over again. Speaking of drawing, this is a great time to bring a how to draw book. Your kids are sitting for a really long time and they have time to sit and learn how to draw something new. You can get fancy. We have some really kind of complex drawing books, like things about how to draw portraits and figures and faces, or you can get really simple with how to draw animals. But these also don't require paper. You can use these with a dry erase board or a boogie board too. The company that used to be called Usborne but is now called Paper Pie, they have a great series of books that are all about like writing your own poetry or writing plays, but they also have this one that we really love called Write and Draw Your Own Comics. And this is great for road trips because comics are fun and you can draw right in the book. They give you some kind of prompts and some upside down, some ideas, and our kids really love this whole series, but this book especially. These are also from Usborne, now Paper Pie, but these are Lift the Flap books. Now they have ones that are for younger kids, so they have like board books that are Lift the Flap. They have things on like animals, like bees and insects and all sorts of topics, but then they also have these for slightly older kids. So this one is a question and answer flip book about music. So they're fun to read different facts and things about different topics. This one is about the human body. I know for sure the human body one has different levels. Like you can have like a little kid board book and this older kid see inside your body book with Lift the Flaps. This one is about biology. So maybe a book that is a little bit more like educational, but that is a little fun because it has these Lift the Flap book, or it has these flaps, Lift the Flaps. It's just fun in the car because you're sitting there and you have nothing else to do. We have a couple math games that it's not a screen, but it's like an electronic game. And so we have this one called Multiplication Slam. We have another one that is more like adding and subtracting, I think. But the nice thing about this is that there is a headphone jack. So not everybody in the car has to hear Math Slam, which is really what that sounds like.
I had totally forgotten about this box in the basement that has some road trip games, so let's open it up and see what's inside. All right, it's been a while since I've looked in this box, but I've got a Simon game, little travel size Bop It, got some magnetic play scenes that were from the Target Dollar Spot a long time ago. So these little guys, just like little magnetic things, or not magnets, I don't know what they are. They're made to be used on here, but you can also use little magnet pieces, magnetic tic-tac-toe games, more play scenes. This looks like it has seen better days and probably needs to be put in the trash, but this basically, you just have like a water pen that goes with it and you color with water, and it's great for little kids that you don't trust with like markers in the car. But you can see that this has been damaged and definitely will not work anymore. Road trip bingo. This is super fun. I'm sure I got this at the Target dollar spot at some time, but I will link a similar one on Amazon. And then the rest of this looks like some coloring books and puzzle books, and I'll tell you more about the things that we take when I head upstairs.
Our kids also like to bring a deck of cards and a little lap desk that they can play a little card game. There are tons of games that have travel size games. I know we have a travel size Mastermind. For a while we had a travel size Sorry. I don't know if we still have that anymore, if we've lost all the pieces. Any game that can kind of be self-contained, or card games. Those are really fun to do. You can also have like a little tray like this, or just a cheap sheet pan that you can get from like the dollar store. That's great for card games. It's also really great for magnets for younger kids, because they can put the magnets on. They don't have to worry about them falling off. Same with the cards. You can also do this. This one is a little bit big, I think, for the car, unless you only have a couple kids. But with our car, we're trying to cram 7 people into a minivan. We would need something smaller. So like a sheet pan that you would get for cooking would be a much better option. And just get like a cheap cookie sheet, like nothing fancy. This clearly is not very fancy. But then you can put craft supplies on here, or your drawing supplies, and they're not gonna roll all over the car.
Okay, I wanna show you a few different options you can use for lap desks in the car. Obviously, we talked a little bit about those trays that are really good for like magnetic things. We have a lap desk like this that is designed to use in the car. It has like a strap that you can put around your child's like their legs or their waist, and it's great because it's soft and it stays in place then, and it won't fall or like move around when they're in the car. This one I think is a really nice option, especially for older kids, or kids who can hold it into in place, and you don't have to worry about them dropping it because it's just a flat surface. This one is really old, obviously. It is actually mine from when I was a kid. And it just has like a pillow on the other side, and so it's nice and soft, and has a good hard surface for coloring or drawing or whatever. This is one of those tray tables like you would do breakfast in bed. I got mine at a thrift store because they are a little bit expensive. So I wouldn't recommend necessarily like going out to buy something like this, but if you happen to have it, it's a good option for older kids, especially in like a bench seat when you don't have a lot of kids in car seats. Because if you had car seats, this would definitely be trickier to use. Would definitely be trickier to use not in a bench seat, but could be a good option if you already have one or happen to find one at a thrift store like I did.
We also have some like quiz type card games. These from Professor Noggins are really fun. They're kind of just like question and answer things. This is about the wonder of science. There are a whole bunch of different topics that they have. We also have, I actually found this at a thrift store, I think, but these are these Brain Quest. I actually had some of these when I was a kid. Now this one, they have different levels. This one is kindergarten, so since I have a kindergartner, this could be fun. This is not something I would use on an everyday basis. I'm not a big fan of like flashcard type activities, but for something like this, when you're in the car, my kids like to just ask each other questions. So it's just a fun, the older kids levels are a little bit more fun, I think, than the kindergarten ones. The kindergarten ones are like, okay, which one takes electricity to work? That could be fun. What do you call a baby sheep? So some of the questions are like more letters and sounds and numbers, and some of them are a little bit more like question answer kind of quiz like. Like I said, this is not something I would use for like our everyday homeschool, but it's kind of fun on a road trip, something different, something unique, something that doesn't take a lot of supplies. You can easily throw it in your car. You can actually keep it in your car, so if you're ever stuck somewhere or you have to wait, it's easy to like throw in your purse if you need to wait at an appointment or something. Or your kids are, at a practice, a sports practice, and you have a younger child with you. These are kind of fun for that sort of thing. Pipe cleaners are super fun in the car. Pipe cleaners, and I don't know if you've ever seen these things called Wiki Sticks. They are kind of like pipe cleaners, but they're made out of wax, and you can bend them and you can make things with them. Your kids can make little like glasses or make little figures. Obviously, if you have really small kids, maybe don't give them the pipe cleaners because they might poke themselves on the end. But the wiki sticks are great because they are not gonna hurt anybody. I will link everything below in the description. Now, I love to sew, and when my kids were young, I made them this color wheel. And so different colors of fabric. I have a tutorial for this on my blog if you are also a person who likes to sew. And then I took clothespins and I painted one side with the color that matched the fabric, and then I wrote the color on the back. And this was super fun. It could be used multiple ages, but if you are not someone who likes to sew like me, you could easily do this with a paper plate, and you could just color in the different colors on the plate. Get some clothespins. You don't have to paint it. You could just use like a marker. And this is a fun and easy way to keep your kids occupied. You could also have this on the tray like this and lay it down and get different colored pom-poms, and your kids could match them and then put them back into like a Ziploc bag or a little, you know, little tote of some kind, like a little plastic bucket or whatever. An old peanut butter jar, anything like that. It would be a fun game for really small kids to do, like your toddlers or your preschoolers. Handicrafts are a super fun car activity, especially for your older kids. So something like embroidery. I just found this half-finished project sitting in our embroidery basket. I have no idea what it was supposed to be or if it's ever going to become anything, ever. But my kids do love embroidery. This is fun. If you have really small kids, you can get embroidery needles that have a really dull point so they don't poke themselves in the eye or in the finger and start bleeding on your road trip. But knitting is also great. Crochet, if your kids know how to do any of those kinds of handicrafts. Friendship bracelets. My kids like to make lanyards. Any kind of, you know, sit down activity that you would do at home, you can probably transfer that to the car. And for your really small kids, you can do something like this. This is like a lacing board. So you can take a shoestring or you can take yarn and they can just lace, make a design. You can pull it out and they can do another one. Another option for really small kids, we really like these lacing cards. These are from Melissa and Doug. These have letters on one side and the corresponding like animal or object on the other side. So it's a little bit of dual purpose learning and practicing lacing with these like shoelace. So you can also bring beads and do the same thing. Make little necklaces. Obviously you want to like know your child and know if there is choking issues or if they're going to put the beads in their mouth. Don't bring them if they are going to put the beads in their mouth. Make sure they're old enough that it's not going to be an issue, because I do not want you calling me and telling me that I didn't warn you. Okay. Okay, I know we talked already about magnets, but we have some like magnet words, like magnet poetry. And we have this, it's actually like a magnetic easel that can like stand up, like a tabletop easel. And I'll link this below because we really, really love this set actually for our homeschool. But it comes with words, and the words that it comes with, I think, are these words that are a little bit younger kid words, but it's magnetic. And then we also have this poetry, like magnetic poetry or sentence building set. So you can bring those along and your kids can make up sentences that are really silly, and they can do it with each other. They can make a sentence and pass it along. Maybe somebody adds to the sentence. Just put the magnet words in like a little baggie or some kind of little container, and super fun activity that, you know, they can involve each other, but they can also do it themselves. Story cubes are also a really fun idea for a road trip. So these you don't really need to have like a tray or a lap desk, but you can. You just roll the cube and something will come up on the, like some kind of picture or something. This is a picture of a beach. You can do all of the story cubes and you can make up, like you roll it onto your lap or onto your lap desk or your tray. Okay, we've got a snake, a mountain, a person, and an airplane. So I have to make a story using all of these things. Super fun. The kids can do it together. They don't have to write it down. They can just be silly and goofy with each other. They can make up ridiculous stories and have a lot of fun together. Now, we got these cards. These are called Never Get Bored cards from Usborne, now known as Paper Pie. And they just have all sorts of different fun activities, but the card themselves is a dry erase card. So you can write on it, wipe it clean, do these activities over and over again. We have another box too that I think is maybe like puzzles, but these are super fun. My kids really like these. These are a really, really easy thing to take with you. It doesn't have to be a road trip. Even you could just throw them in your car so that you have them. If you're ever like sitting somewhere like those quiz cards, you can use them for anything. These are also really great at like a restaurant if you're waiting a really long time for your dinner. These are fun to keep kids entertained and to have fun things to talk about together as a family. Now, something that I think is really fun if you're traveling in the United States, especially if you are taking a longer road trip that you're gonna pass through several states, it is awesome to bring along some books that have to do with the states you're traveling in. So if you bring a few books that have to do with the United States, and then you can together, like this one is a little bit younger and this one is a little bit old, like for little older kids. Okay, you're traveling Alaska. We're not gonna drive through Alaska. All right, Illinois. We will definitely drive through Illinois on our next road trip. So we can bring this, the kids can read things about Illinois, they can read it from this book too, and then we can print off a map of the United States and I can laminate it or I can put it in like a dry erase sleeve. This is like a sleeve that you put the paper inside of it and you can use it for things like this for tracing, or you can put the map inside of it and your kids can color in or trace or like draw the route that you're gonna go. It's awesome too if you bring an actual map, like not an app that's a map, but like an actual paper map that you can give your kids. They can follow along on your trip, point out different landmarks, whatever it is that you're seeing, and they can see where they are in relation to where they're going, and they can just have more of an awareness of the world around them rather than just like, how long until we get there? When are we gonna get there? How long are we stuck in this car, Mom? I actually have a free printable with the map and with some fun activities that you can do in the car with your kids with the map. You can go to my blog, siloandsage.com, and you can just type in the search bar road trip and it will come up, or you can go to the description below and you can find the link, the direct link to the post that has all the information about all of these things that I was talking about and anything more that maybe I forgot and I added to the post. But I hope that this gave you some ideas of some things that you can do with your kids in the car that are off a screen. Now, there is no shame in using a screen when you need to, because we've all been there and we all do it. But sometimes it's nice to have some other alternatives, especially on a really long road trip when you maybe don't want your kids to be staring at a screen the entire time. Now, I would love it if you would hit the like button, subscribe to my channel here, and I will see you soon with another video. In the meantime, keep cultivating your home. Bye, friends.